This podcast is sponsored by CDO Group, the industry leader in providing a full range of construction and project management services. CDO Group has managed thousands of projects in all 50 states. Their group of experts provides systems, processes, and procedures to make sure that your projects turn over on time and on budget every single time. With over 24 years of experience, CDO Group is the industry's leader in construction management and general contracting services. To find them, go to cdogroup.com. Hi, and welcome to the Future of Development podcast. My name's Anthony Amunategui, and I'm here to inspire people to find amazing careers in the construction development world. If you like our podcast, please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you really like our podcast, make sure you hit the little bell. Hi, and welcome to the Future Development Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Amunategui, and today I'm joined by Kasia Borowska. She is the director over at Daisy AI. Her group over at Brainpool are changing and creating AI platforms for all kinds of industries. Kasia, welcome to the show. Kasia, welcome to the show. I am excited to have you on today. I get a chance to spend a little bit more time with you. We spend time together. It's always fun. Before we get started, let's kind of go backwards a little bit and introduce you, right? Introduce a little bit of your background to kind of tell the audience about you.
Sure. Thank you, Anthony. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Kasia Borowska, and I'm managing director at a company called Brainpool AI, which essentially is a global network of top-level artificial intelligence and machine learning experts. And what we do is we try to apply the latest AI research to solve some of the most pressing business challenges. And recently, in the past 3 years or so, we started focusing on construction specifically, so applying AI to construction. We know that construction is one of the slowest adopters of artificial intelligence technologies, and that's where we come in. Hopefully, we'll solve that problem soon.
You know, I think that anytime that we look at construction, and for thousands of years, we have built the same way. We've taken heavy things from over here and we drag them over here. We bang on them for a little bit, and then we pile them up together and we make things. So now today, as AI starts to come into place, as the project management tools and processes come into place, and we start to apply taking this lagging industry called construction and start to really apply these new ideas, where are you guys starting to see some of the openings? What are you seeing that really is the greatest opportunities in the development of AI?
So, I mean, you can call it an opportunity. I see it more as a necessity, and really the necessity comes from our growing population. So, the population is doubling again. It's doubled during the 70s, 80s, when we had to digitalize everything in order to be able to automate and make our process more efficient. Now again, the population is doubling, and we just need to automate those inefficient processes. Otherwise, our environment won't be able to sustain it. So really, most of the applications of machine learning and AI are towards making the process more efficient and making sure that they're automated as much as physically possible.
When we talk about the population growing, I think a lot of times people don't understand what we mean by that. The growth of the population to date, as we watched it grow year over year, and some of the things that we're noticing is that people are when I was young, men lived into their early mid 60s. Now they're starting to that life expectation is growing, and now that my kids, they're expecting to live into their early hundreds. And just in that alone, we'll double the population right there, right? I mean, so just to start to think about where we are as a world and all of the parts and pieces that we need to operate the world, now we double the number of people on the planet, and how does that affect our ability to be efficient and our ability to produce the products and the needs that we have, or fulfill the needs that we have?
Absolutely, and every one of these people that age, and also every new member of our planet or our population needs to have a shelter. And so in terms of residential construction, at least, more and more houses have to be built. So automation is a necessity to sustain that growth. It's
amazing, staggering when you look at the numbers across the world. You certainly can see the products that we're seeing coming out today. We had a podcast the other day with a group that's printing a house every 40 hours, right? So essentially, every 2 days they print another house, right? So the ability to do that, and with products that are a lot more sustainable and energy efficient, the techniques and the methods they're using to do that are phenomenal. And for that, I think it's a lot of fun. It's exciting, right? And sometimes I think it's overwhelming, right? As we look at these changes and we start to adapt them and apply them to current codes and all the stuff that gets affected.
No, absolutely, and obviously, with the growth in demand. We need to grow the supply, and we know that construction is struggling with a huge workforce shortage. So in the UK, I think there's an estimated one construction worker being hired every 77 seconds, right? So there isn't enough people to build homes, and so things like printed houses is definitely one way. And another way would be robotics and using AI to automate some of those manual, time-consuming processes.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And we've stolen a lot of people from the restaurant world. I've got restaurateurs I've interviewed, and they're all mad at us in construction because, a lot of the guys that were in the restaurants during COVID left and said, well, they'll try out construction because we kept operating during COVID, and it was a necessary sector of the market. And a lot of them said, wait a minute, I can make more money per hour, and I don't have the stress of working in a restaurant. And we've picked up a lot of those people that were in restaurants today. And as we continue to do that, and this sector grows, and the need to grow faster and to develop faster, how are you seeing that being impacted? Where are you seeing the opportunities to impact that?
Well, to be honest, I really hope that the direction in which we're going is to get AI to align its goals to really support human workers. And so the AI will take on most of the manual, repetitive, and time-consuming tasks to allow people to focus on the creative tasks and on the things that matter to them the most. So really, there is no need for humans to be performing the repetitive tasks. Most of that can now be done by robotics, by AI systems. So really, there has to be this partnership formed between AI and humans, and I think we're still quite far from achieving that goal, because at the moment it's all a little bit scattered, and there isn't enough organization or regulations applied to AI companies as well as corporations to ensure that collaboration exists smoothly.
For sure, there's always this worry, like, oh my God, is the AI going to take over my job? And what am I going to do? Am I going to be unemployed and stuck out? Am I going to be the guy sleeping on the park bench because AI just took over my job? And, for sure, as I speak to people that are in the AI world across the industry, I'm noticing it's really more of, the steps as we grow AI. First of all, the amount of data it needs in order for it to actually work is still in development, right? And as we're inputting that data to really create the information that AI needs to be able to really be effective, there is a large we have some time right now. We have some time to integrate that information and start to put together some of those rules. And I know that people are starting to look at, all right, what kind of rules will we set around this? How are we going to make sure that AI and how are we and AI going to coexist well together? It's certainly coming, right? It's certainly coming at us. And how do we make sure that I don't become insignificant, right? I mean, that's ultimately what I'm worried about is the human race can become insignificant? Are we going to become some sort of zoo where they kind of watch us as a primitive species type of thing?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the theories. It's definitely possible if we keep on going the way we are going now. So it's this whole value alignment problem. Right? Not enough work is being done in the area of AI ethics to make sure that the artificial intelligence systems we're building are aligned with our goals. So there are many famous examples, but if you think of, I think it's Elon Musk's example, if you tell AI to get rid of all the spam emails in the world, right? What's the easiest way for it to do it? It's just to kill all the people, and there won't be any spam because there won't be any email. Right? So you need to make sure that the goals are aligned. Because if you don't set the goals right, then the AI is going to do directly what it's told to do. And so definitely a lot more work needs to go into regulating AI and making sure that there is full transparency on how the AI systems are working, And for that, we really need top-level researchers and academics that understand the underlying maths behind the AI algorithms.
Yeah, I certainly see that we are lining up, the lineup is that AI becomes this assistant, right? As we start to look at my day and become, taking away those repetitive tasks. One, I think I heard someone say just recently, if AI takes over your job, it probably was a pretty repetitive job. Or if a robot takes over your job, you probably had a really crappy job, right? It was probably something that was very repetitive, very static. Today where we are with technology, it's going to take a minute before we can, advance past the very repetitive, static type of a job.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's not the first time it's happening. It's the fourth time it's happening. This is called the fourth industrial revolution. We've already been through 3 of them, and the last one, the whole digitalization, it actually created way more jobs that it took, right? All the digital marketing, all of the digital jobs that were created in the past 20, 30 years. People just couldn't imagine them when the digitalization started to happen because they just, none of it existed. So there wouldn't be a job such as search engine optimization specialist because there was no search engines, right? So we don't know what kind of jobs will be created. And so I think this is really what the focus should be, to look into the future in terms of what are the creative jobs that the humans will be able to perform once AI takes on the manual repetitive tasks.
No, for sure. At one point they answered phones, Chicago 555, and they had a little, and then they had, the answered phones with this, and then they, had that one in the house, and then, the digital one, and then they had and somewhere people have had, we've actually created a lot more jobs than ever before. And I think that's the thing that's so hard to see is that, as this technology develops, the opportunities that come with it are so much greater, right? The development of new ideas, the new places that we can go are so, first of all, we are able to do them so much faster, right? You and I doing this podcast 25 years ago would have taken us $1 million to broadcast between 2 different studios, cameras, setup, being able to get satellite feed back and forth to each other. Today you and I have, maybe I've got a nice camera in here, and, we got a couple sets of headphones and a microphone, and all of a sudden, boom, we're broadcasting. And, being able to create this is happening so much faster. And I think that's happening throughout all the ideas and opportunities, is that technology certainly makes the idea and then organizing it and developing it happen much, much faster than ever before.
Absolutely. And, it's not just on Earth, but hopefully soon we're going to be able to communicate with other planets. If SpaceX missions succeed, then hopefully, we can actually expand our reach and also communicate with habitants of planets, in other planets in our solar system, which is kind of what I'm quite looking forward to seeing.
As we start to look at the integration of AI, right, and as we look at augmenting ourselves, today, I'm certainly here. I'm already an augmented human being. I've got a pair of glasses on that augments my vision. I carry a cell phone, which now I know anything I want to know, I can know in minutes. Excuse me. As we get more and more augmented, and we can see technology being embedded in us. I often joke, here, if I were to say to you, all right, Kasia, if I could implant this in you, and for $500,000, I'm going to implant this in you. And when I implant this in you, you will now know everything there. You'll now know 3 different languages. Or even better, you can have the one with languages, or here, Kasia, for $500,000, I'm going to put this in your body and you'll never get sick again. In fact, it'll be able to monitor all your health systems 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at any given time. You'll never die from a medical issue. I'll be able to monitor your body, tell you what kind of supplements, what kind of enzymes you need. What are the things you're going to need to make sure that your body maintains perfect health? It's $500,000. And by the way, you don't have to pay me all at one time. You can make payments. But if you don't make the payments, I got to turn it off for a little bit. What's your thoughts?
oh, who made it?
Well, all right, now
I'm not getting anything in unless I know how it's made.
Now I've tested it out and I got it perfect. I got this thing down to a science. For sure, it's great. I put it in 100,000 test people, and they've all loved it, and it's doing great, and they're all doing healthy, and they're living longer, and they're living better. But it's only $500,000, and you make payments on it per month. And as long as you do that, you'll never ever be sick, Kasia. You're never.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's super interesting, and I think you pointed out quite accurately that we're already cyborgs in many ways, but at the moment, most of it is external, right? So it's external limbs or phone, or when it comes to implants, and especially those changes to your body that are irreversible. I think we are quite far away from getting that, because long-term effects can only be measured by long-term testing.
Right.
So I think we should definitely do a few more tests before we start advertising the way you just have to me.
All right, so now here I'm going to go another step, right? For $700,000, you get. I implant this in you. You get all of the benefits of health. You never ever get sick, and you learn 3 languages. At any given time, you can speak any 3 languages you want. $700,000. You don't have to pay me all at one time, but you got to put this in, and you got to make payments for the rest of your life. Is that gonna? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, also, who else is gonna get it? There's just so many unanswered questions. Same thing goes with the genetically modified DNA. Why would richer part of the society have access to now be able to speak more languages than the poor part of the society? Something that I fundamentally disagree with.
All right, got it. Disagree or not disagree with it. Listen, for $1 million, you're going to implant this, right? For $1 million, Kasia, here's what you get. Watch what I'm going to throw in there. You get to have all the health benefits. Mm-hmm. Now you get every single language on the planet. No matter what language it is, you get every single language. You speak all of them. And for $1 million, I throw in all the information on the internet. It's $1 million bucks.
I think actually the higher you go with the pricing, the more skeptical I get towards it. I think everyone should have the same opportunity to learn your languages, and if you only give these opportunities to the rich, and then that gap between the rich and the poor is just going to get worse. So any solutions that are going to that direction, I'm very much against.
All right, so now here's what you got to remember. If you don't put this in you, now you got to compete with me. And by the way, Eric over here and Nina, they all got it. So now the 3 of us have it and you don't have it. And by the way, you don't have to pay me at first. If you're poor, you can make payments. You might just you push your payments out until you get to age 10. But if you don't get this, Kasia, me and my family, we got these. And now you got to compete with us.
Well, tough luck. I just need to learn more. Study my languages faster.
And that's where that to me seems like the biggest fear is that we start to look at, all right, the cost of these things as technology goes, and there are people with opportunity, with the funds and the capacities to have access to those technologies. The first adopters, maybe not the scariest thing, but there certainly will be a gap that gets created very quickly. And the AI technology, the problem with that is that gap will happen so fast. I don't know if we'll have that ability if the bottom trend setters, the bottom trend will be able to catch up to it at any given point. I think that to me seems like one of the things we've really got to look at, right? As a society, if that gap goes too fast, too quickly, and we're not looking at it across the board, now what have we done to the gap between the haves and have-nots? And what does that do to us as an overall group? Are there the big brain people and the originals, and then there's the modifies, and what kind of social stigmas will come along with that, and how all that play out? I think certainly is a movie waiting to happen, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm glad you talk about these kind of topics, because it's important to talk about it. The access to education is already so uneven across different economical groups. So you're right that with introduction of tools like artificial intelligence, that problem will just exponentially grow, and it may actually get out of hand if we don't act on it soon. So I would be very keen to start having these kind of conversations with the regulatory bodies that will actually influence the development and access to these AI machine learning tools.
I certainly feel like in education is probably one of the spaces where opportunity is the greatest for AI, right? I mean, I know me. I never graduated college. I'm a self-made man. I started CDO Group, the construction company that I've owned for 25 years. That was my PhD, right? That's where I learned. That's where I cut my teeth. That's where I learned everything. The growing humans and business and all the stuff that comes along with that was my college. When I sat at a desk as a student, it made no sense to me. The way that they taught me did not work for me. But I was forced to go into public school, and I was forced to learn like everybody else did in a system that didn't work for me. And I felt awkward the entire time. I know as a little boy, I would often sit there in class and wonder why they all got it and I didn't. And I felt like there was something wrong. And all I realized was I didn't learn that way, right? I didn't learn the way the masses did, but they weren't going to stop and adapt for me. Now, there were a couple of great teachers out there who took their time and spent time with me and really helped me develop as a young man. And probably Mrs. Edwards is one of my first grades where she literally took me aside and realized the school bus was running me over. And all she needed to do was sit down, or Milt Stringer, who was my math teacher in sixth grade, who taught me math through scuba diving, right? As soon as I found that adaptation, oh my God, it all made sense, pressures and levels. And he really changed my world when he introduced me to scuba diving. And I would not have gotten that had someone not been able to see that. Where I think AI can start to learn the human being and adapt to learning. And learning will happen a lot different than it ever will, today. Today we go to school for this many years. Now we go out and try to educate the world. Somewhere I believe AI will be a continual learning process. We'll learn a lot more, a lot faster, but the AI platforms will be able to give us the ability to adapt to us, right? To the way we learn best. The way Kasia, she works great. She listens and hears stories and loves stories. Anthony, he loves history and lessons and whatever those are, right? Physical learning as opposed to memorized learning. Those abilities I think will change, and I think AI really gives us that joy for as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think the shift in education definitely needs to happen. I completely get your pain because I studied mathematics and then cognitive science, so I had no idea how to apply any of that knowledge in real life because they just don't teach you that at uni. When you learn all the formulas, great, but then so what? So I think definitely there is more work that needs to be done in helping children understand how all of this knowledge can be useful. And like you said, rather than memorizing, to teach them that strategic way of thinking and a creative way of thinking that AI can potentially help with.
That was one of the ones that really messed me up, I think the most, was that no one ever taught me how to learn. Right? They all expected me to sit down and memorize all this stuff, and somehow or another I was like already I didn't know how to learn yet, right? And as I start to look at AI and the speed by which the information is going to come at us as things go so much faster, right? As BIM modeling has changed, because the number one change that we've seen in the last 10 years is really this BIM modeling, and watching that data set really start to move the abilities to do what we're going to do in construction. The things that we'll be able to do, the speed by which we'll develop, you could see very quickly how the construction worker of the future will be on a continuous learning basis. When my father and I first started doing construction work when I was young, I remember the first house, we bought a house and we did a flip on a house, right? Or we didn't flip it, we bought it and rented it out. And we bought the house for $900 and it had been on fire, right? We bought the house for $900 and there was a fire in the living room. So we bought a house that had a fire in it. And there was a hole in the middle of the living room, right? There was a big giant hole in the middle. And we got there and my parents had bought the house for $900. It was across the street from my mother's house, and we bought the house, and then we were sitting there looking, we got to fix this roof. And neither one of us had ever fixed a roof before. So we go down to the local hardware store and we sat down with the guy and he taught us how to build a roof. And he showed us and he said, look, here's how it's built. And the two of us were really smart and we just kind of took it apart together and we could learn from it. And we had some time to do that. And by the way, the first repair we didn't work. We had to fix it several times, but in that process we learned. And as we look at AI, I believe that the construction worker of the future will learn as they operate, right? In their day-to-day business, in the TV shows they watch. If tomorrow Bob and Betty are doing plumbing work on a high-rise and they have a new piece of equipment coming in, somewhere in the TV show they watch tonight, or somewhere in the in the information they have throughout their journey to that job site, they're going to learn the name of the product, how it gets adapted, how they operate it. I believe that AI will be able to adapt to the day that they're having, as opposed to me having to go find the information, memorize it, and then having to do all this stuff. I believe AI will be able to really adapt to that scenario and help us understand the equipment, how to operate it, how to make sure we use it as best practices with it, which will give us a much broader base as a plumber. It gives us a much broader base of techniques that we can work on, rather than I've got a sweat pipe with copper and flux and or PEX or whatever they're using today. I'll be able to pick from products from around the world, and based on availability and environmental how it impacts the environment better. Those opportunities that we weren't able to pick from before. I believe in the past we've had much, architects have been, or designers have been very static with they do one thing all the time consistently, because that's the products they know. And by the way, that's also the way codes operate. So they're afraid to try new products out.
No, absolutely. I think you pointed out an interesting thing there, that there's really a beautiful partnership between humans and AI. AI needs to learn based on the knowledge that's being fed into it by humans. So the data, right? Essentially, data needs to be produced and labeled by humans through previous operations, and that's how AI systems can learn and improve. But then, in turn, AI, once it already exists and works well, can then help humans to actually transfer that knowledge from one team to another, and to make sure that there's a continuous increase in the knowledge and information and capabilities that are being gained by any given type of worker, or be it architect or designer or engineer or anyone else in the construction sector.
For sure, I feel like we are fish in a fish tank when we talk about construction knowledge. I feel like, I can't tell you how many times we go through the exact same mistake on this project as we do on the next project. And we're like, for sure, this time we will not do that again. So look, we're going to write processes and procedures, and we're going to put a book of knowledge together. We're going to have all this information, and it's like fish in a fish tank. Oh, look, bubbles. And then we go back around and like, oh, look, bubbles again.
Oh, again.
And we do this game, and we don't transfer that data properly, and it feels a little bit like we have amnesia. And we get to the end of a project, and all that data that's collected, knowledge that's gained, gets, oh, we're done, run. And we leave the books behind that we wrote all the things that we're smart down on. And I think AI and those tools will be able to translate that and then make them available and accessible, because you're like, where did I put that notebook I need for the information on week 7 of the next project I do? Being able to get that to a point where as we need it, it'll be available right in front of us at the time we need it, instead of us having to spend hours hunting for. That's the problem with my house here, is that I do work around the house, but it takes me more time to go find the screwdrivers I need than the work I've got to do. So I do a lot less work, and I feel like that's one of my flaws around here is finding the things and the information I need to do the projects that we're doing.
Yeah, unfortunately, our individual processing power is much lower than the supercomputers that exist. So I agree with you that we can definitely leverage the computing power of the AI systems to help us with those small tasks, like remembering where things are.
So talk to me a little bit about what is inspiring you. Like right now, as you look forward, where you're going at with your career, with the work that you're doing, certainly you inspire me. What's inspiring you? What's this work that you're working on that you're looking at that you're most inspired by?
I'm really inspired in making a difference by applying the new technologies to sectors that not yet been explored by AI, machine learning. So construction, there's so many inefficiencies there. so many things that can be done better by simply applying, quite simple algorithms and techniques that are broadly being used. So, as an example, what we recently did is we built a company called Daisy AI, which is applying artificial intelligence in timber design. So it's actually a crazy problem that there's about 20 to 30% of timber being wasted by the construction sector. And unfortunately, the easiest way to get rid of timber on the construction site, the timber that you don't need, is to burn it. Right? So first, all of that wood is being transported on the construction sites, and then a lot of it is being burned at the site just because we're not able to measure it accurately, or we're not able to actually figure out what kind of components we're going to need ahead of the time. So Daisy applies genetic programming, which is actually an area of research that's been around for years, probably 20, 30 years in academia. But obviously, the construction sector have not had access to it yet. So we are the first ones to combine the world of academics, and so PhD level researchers in genetic programming, with the world of timber engineers and manufacturers. And so Daisy is the first tool that figures out how to produce timber flow layouts automatically with a push of a button. So rather than the engineer having to spend 2 to 3 hours trying to figure out how joists and beams have to be structured around the flow, which often results in suboptimal designs, Daisy does it automatically in under 10 minutes with a click of a button. And flow is just the beginning. We're going to apply it to walls, roofs, stairs, and hopefully in the future be able to build a full timber house design with a click of one button.
So it takes both the design and instead of an engineer sitting down, a designer designs a building and an engineer sitting down and going, all right, you've got this 2x4, I've got this span, a 20-foot room, and I've got to span this, and now I've got to look for the products or the timbers I need to do that. The AI is doing that for it automatically?
Exactly. So it's genetic programming. So just, I guess, to give you a bit of background how it works. So we started with a population of badly designed agents. It actually applies the same principles as evolutionary search, the same as human evolution worked. We started with a population of badly designed humans, or maybe the previous species, and then slowly we get a better and better. We get a better and better outcome. So over, say, 50, 100 generations, that flow design becomes more and more optimal until the system converges, which is when we know we found the absolute most optimal solution. And the most optimal, in our case, can either mean minimizing the total cost of construction, or minimizing the total waste or performance of a particular flow, so that really the goals and objectives can be set by the person that's using our system.
So you put in these parameters. Let me make sure I get the understanding of this. So I look at a space, an area, a footprint. Let's say let's just for a second use a 5,000 square foot house. I've got to put on a 7,000 square foot piece of property, and I want to put 4 bedrooms in there, and I want to be able to put this many inhabitants in there. Is that the type of stuff you're putting there, or are you laying out the rooms and it's making the members to make that? Help me out how far it goes in the design work.
We specialize in timber specifically, so sure. It's producing the timber flow layout. So if you think about the joists and beams, the structure is quite complex. There's about 50,000 possibilities in which joists can be structured around a simple rectangular shaped floor. If you think about your stairs openings, your internal walls, your windows, your stairs and everything else. So that takes a long time to actually figure out, what is the most optimal way in which this should be structured. So it's really a structural engineering problem that our system is solving. Got it.
So it takes the layout that you've created, and now maximizes the design components for it, the joists, the wall components, and takes from existing stock. So in other words, does it take here's 20-foot piece of 2x4, figures out how to optimize each piece of that in a pallet to make the product you want to make?
That's it. That's exactly right. So you input an empty flow layout, and after 10 minutes as an output, you get a full production-ready timber flow design.
Wow. I mean, because
it's quite impressive.
Today that process takes hours. I mean, right, for an engineer to sit down with slide rules and all their little tools and techniques they get for doing that, or not slide rules, that's me. But by the time they're done, taking their joists and so they have to go through and, this is doing it automatically then.
Absolutely. So that process can take, 2 to 3 hours is an average, but it could take much longer for the more complex shapes. And it's not just the design part. Actually, what I realized throughout this whole process of working with the timber construction industry is that they actually send each other designs via fax machines. So, or print PDFs, and they try to compare the digital versions with printed PDFs. And the whole process can actually take about 2 weeks to get one single floor designed. Because they can't fit the file sizes, they're too big in Revit files over emails, and they have to use some other. So we have built a cloud-based platform, so Daisy is all in the cloud, so everyone has access to the same view, everyone can just log in, see the same plan in real time being changed, and there's no need for fax machines anymore.
No, that's right. I mean, there are people still with, fax machines that are in our business, and I think to myself, okay, are you still carrying a club, and or you live in a cave, pager. Right? A pager, that's right. Let's go back to having a pager. Nina's over here going, what's a pager? She's never seen a pager. It's funny how we have changed. I carried a pager for years. At one point I had 2 of them. On my hip. Pagers were these little. You know what a pager is? It's like a little thing that sits on your hip that beeps, and whenever someone needs you, it would send you a beep, and then you could look on the screen and it would tell you a phone number, and you had to go find a payphone. You ran around in your car, and you had to have quarters, right? You know what a payphone is? I'm not. Do you know what a payphone is? So you had to run to a quarter, you find a quarter, and you had to throw quarters in there, and you had to call and say, "Hey, you just paged me. What's going on?" And it'd be like your mom going, "Oh, I just need some milk." And you're like, "Oh my God, I just left a job site, ran on because my mom needed some milk." And
3 hours later.
Yeah. Then you started getting some really funny codes. Then you started being able to get 411, and then you could use numbers to put, 911 was important, or you could put love if you did it kind of back, or 7 upside. There was a bunch of things we did. So that being said, we are, we've covered a lot of topics, and as we look at Daisy and how amazing this product is, I get so excited about this. Is really revolutionizing the way that we look at lumber. How does that become an integrated system from the time that the designers design the house all the way through to the manufacturing and delivery, and then actually the project management portion of that?
That's a great question, because obviously if you build an AI tool, you need to make sure that people will actually use it and it integrates with the existing tools that they use. So we are part of the Autodesk residency program. So Autodesk has tools such as AutoCAD and Revit that are used by most of the architects and structural engineers. So Daisy actually has a plugin that speaks to Revit. So if you're a Revit user, you can immediately download your plan in a format that Daisy accepts, and then gets the AI tool integrated into your existing tools. So it's actually quite easy for any structural engineer to use Daisy.
That's an amazing. Making ease of use and accessibility that's the key to it, right? Being able to have that at the ready, and then knowledge that it's there to use. I think that makes it smarter and smarter, and easier, and more of a protocol than just the several people that are creative that now everybody has access to it.
Absolutely. We find that being one of the most important, equally as important as the technology we build is the aspect of making accessible and easy to use for our clients.
Well, I got to tell you, I love our conversations. Every time that we get together, it's fun. I look forward to as Daisy continues to develop and your group does more and more impact in the construction industry. I'm excited to present those opportunities out to the world and tell the world about it. So please keep us informed. Make sure that I'd love to come spend more time with your group. And I'm grateful that you take time out of your busy day to spend with us and tell us about these amazing projects.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Great. We'll look forward to having you on again.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
Thanks for joining us. My name is Anthony Amunategui, always looking for people to bring insight into the industry, finding ways to inspire people to have amazing careers in the development world. If you liked our podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. If you really liked our podcast, make sure you hit the little bell. Thanks again for listening. Please share it with your friends.